Okay, so whenever you're doing this ball bounce, all I want you to do right now is to do a simple ball bounce. Later in the week, later next week, we'll have you start doing a little bit more complicated story type with your ball. But for right now, all we want is the most simple, basic ball bounce. If you go to the internet,
What's that?
the internet is a series of tubes. But if you go to the internet and you Google ball bounce, if you go to the images, you're going to actually see a lot of different reference information. You've got some this guy right here, which seems to me as if it's more physics based. You've got some different little loops that are all pretty close to what we're actually trying to do. What I like, there's a reference that I really like. It's in Preston Blair's cartoon animation, and then there is one in Richard Williams' Animator Survival Kit, and actually this little picture is shown in the Animator Survival Kit. But no matter which way you really look at it, what you're really needing to figure out is timing. You know, if I throw a ball and I bounce it, how many frames does it take between each thing? If a ball is more rubber, it's going to bounce higher. If a ball is less rubber, it's going to bounce lower. Or less rubber. If it's made out of, if it's a marble or something else, you're not going to get as much bounce. A lot of it's physics based, but until you get comfortable with timing, sometimes your best bet is to just look at see somebody else's the work that somebody else has done. So right now I'm looking at if I look at this ball bounce, I see that it bounces on 7, it peaks at 12, lands at 17, peaks at 21, 25, 28, 31. I can use those numbers, or if I want, I can, like I said, go online, look at different images. I could go off of this guy, go off this guy, go off this guy. In this case, I would count. I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So in this case, it's 10 down there. Okay. Whatever reference you want to use is fine. If you don't want to use a reference, if you want to just do it on your own, that's okay too. But realize you're probably going to have to try 2 or 3 different iterations to get the right flow, to get the right bounce. So for the very basics of this, I pull out a sphere, and I'm going to go into my side view because I really like using my side view. So let me go to my fore view and side view. I really like using this side view, just because if I look here and I go to my reference sheet, which apparently I knocked down. If I go to my reference sheet, you can see that these are all done in a side view. Okay, this is a side view, this is a side view, this is a side view. So we're going to do it in basically 2 dimensions, in Y and Z. But you remember that you can always add a 3rd dimension to that in this software. But for today, all I want to do is I just want to focus on the simplest form of this. Okay, so the first step is we got to determine our frames. Now, we've done a few little simulations here and there on different assignments. So you should know the play window and the controls. This one goes back to the beginning of the frame set. This goes back 1 frame. This goes back 1 keyframe. This plays in reverse. This plays in forward. This goes forward 1 keyframe. This goes forward 1 frame. And this goes to the end of your frame set. Down here, you've got some numbers. This number is the first number in the frame of it's the first number in the animation of the scene. This is the last number in the animation of the scene, meaning that in this scene there are 48 frames. This is the first number of the animation we're viewing. This is the last number of the animation we're viewing. So in the scene there are 48 frames, but we're only looking at 24 of them. I can move this slider and adjust which frames I'm looking at. A typical ball bounce that is just 3 or 4 bounces, it's about 30 frames. So I'm going to change this number to 30. And now I'm looking at 30 frames of 48. Now today, to get started, I want you to just do this at the very simplest level. Okay, I'm not too worried about getting it perfect. You're going to spend the next couple of days really working and refining it. But for right now, for today, I just want you to follow this simple process. First step, select the frame. Next step, position the ball. Third step, hit S. You notice that when I hit S, it puts a little red hash mark right there. That tells me that there is 1 keyframe. Then I move over. Now, There are a lot of you that are going to want to have a tendency to do this with straight ahead animation, meaning that you do one frame, then frame 2, then frame 3, then frame 4, then frame 5, then frame 6. There is some advantages to that, yes. However, in doing it in 3D, you end up with a lot of unnecessary frames and things kind of get muddied really fast. So instead what I recommend is doing a pose to pose. We're going to go in and we're going to do what's called chunking. We're just going to get the base scenes, the base keyframes, and then we'll go in later and refine. So right now I just want the important information. So if I go to 7, I'm going to select the frame 7, I'm going to move my ball over and down, and I'm going to hit S. Now that sets a keyframe. Now if I look between 1 and 7, the computer is automatically going to tween that for me. Let's continue on. I'm going to go to frame 12, and I'm going to move it over and up and hit S. Okay, now I'm starting to get the hang of my bounce. I'm going to go to 17, move the ball over and down, and hit S. Then go to frame 21 and move it over and up and hit S. Then go over to frame 24 and move it over and down and hit S. And that's where I'm going to stop for now. But if you look at that, what are some things that when you look at that you see is missing? Color, sure, that I'm not as worried about. There's no arcs, right? If I were to draw a line on the screen, it would just pretty much be a zigzag. In fact, I'll show you that. In Flash, we call it onion skinning. In Maya, we call it ghosting. If you go to the Animation tab, and you click on this little icon right here, it's the ghosting icon. What it does is it shows you frames before and frames after. If you go to the Animation tab, in the top, and then the ghosting button, which looks like a guy just kind of standing there, maybe like a Slender Man type character, with 2 little ghosts behind him, that's ghosting. Now if I look at that animation, you can see, you can kind of point out and see where I have some errors. So I really need to go in and start making this more of an arc. So I'm going to, I can leave ghosting on, or I can turn it off. To turn it off, you just select just the man standing there. That turns off ghosting. So here I go ghosting. Now I'm going to come over and look at frame 3, and if I move my ball over and hit S, you notice that instantly started to make that look like more of an arc. Okay, let me come over to frame 7, and I want to move this guy over a little bit and hit S. And now you can see that that's getting better there. I'm going to come over to frame 11. I'm going to move it back a little bit and hit S. Go to frame 13, move it over a little and hit S. And I'm going to actually continue to do this until I'm left with decent arcs. And then you also at this point would do squash and stretch by scaling and scaling the axis. You can do the rotate. For today, I want you to just get comfortable basically chunking something out. Try doing squash and stretch if you can. Try doing rotate if you can. But next time I'm going to show you how to do a graph editor, and it's going to help you clean things up a little bit. So remember, 3-step process. Select the frame, take your ball, your object, whatever, move it, rotate it, scale it, hit S. Move over a few frames, move it, rotate it, scale it, hit S. Move over a few frames, move it, rotate it, scale it, hit S. Essentially, that's animating in Maya in a nutshell. Now, there's a lot more to it than that, and we'll get into a few more techniques and tools. But I want you to spend the remaining hour and a half of class today just working on that.